Makiatto is finally coming on a few hours to Gerson Online 2, so let's make a quick guide on how to properly build her when it comes to the weapon, the keys, the set and the attachments, and in my opinion, if I would go for dupes or not, and why. So before we start, as usual, leave a like, subscribe, help me grow the channel, and hello the internet, welcome back to the Waifus. I'm Sefhi, your favorite gambling addict. I'm gonna be going both through my Chinese and my global account, so I can showcase a little bit Dolla on the Chinese account and why she's good, and then we'll go over the global as well a little bit. So before we start, right, a couple of things that are important to note for the tier list first, and we can remove this out of the way. Okay, when I talk about my tier list, I think this is important to mention, but this tier list is based on the Chinese version, not on the global version, and it's based on what units are best to pull for overall, right? So Dolla, as you can see, is a T1, but for us in global, I would go to private when she is S. In fact, she is like a T0 character because she's one of the best damage dealers that we are getting in the game right now. Kyonju and Tololo are amazing, but until we get their keys later on, they don't become like OP per se, right? They are still amazing characters. Don't worry too much. But she is a T0 character. It's just that for the Chinese version, there is a lot of changes and extra keys we are getting that we do not have yet in global. So that's it about the tier list, right? Let's move into the other important stuff, and that's going to be how to properly build Makiatto and how her skills work. So let's go skill by skill. First of all, let me open the Chinese version, not this one right here. My Makiatto is not built because I am poor. I'm trying to build the Springfield. I got her by luck, and I have literally no resources. I don't even have cores right now to be getting these, bro. I'm so broke. At least in global, I have everything ready, which is pretty nice. But when it comes to Makiatto, I'm completely poor. She's level 60, but she's not built even when it comes to her keys. So let's start with her skills, and we can start with the basic attack. This is a physical attack that's going to be dealing 80% damage, as you can see right here, and it's a pretty good range attack. You will always be playing Dolla on the back because her biggest downside is that she needs to be full HP. If she's not full HP, she loses damage. If she's below 80%, she loses a lot of damage. If she doesn't have a shield, she loses a lot of damage. Like, that's like her biggest downside. Like, auto will maybe fuck you up because you know that auto in this game has some weird shenanigans, which it is what it is. Says la vie if you want to be an auto player like me, right? So all in all, a nice shot. Let's move into the cold precision shot. This is her first skill and one of the skills you'll be using the most. This skill, this freeze damage, increase the critical damage of this attack and will gain 1 stack of cold conviction for each instance of damage dealt. This is important because each instance of damage dealt means if you can hit multiple times with this skill on the same turn, it will give you multiple stacks of this cold conviction, which increase attack by 10%, and you can stack this up to 3 times. You will consume these stacks when you use any other skill. So be it your third skill, or be the counter attack with the Overwatch, etc. This is a pretty powerful skill. The only problem about this is that you will only be gaining 1 stack unless you get her first dupe, because her first dupe, if we go here, as you can see, will make it that you now are shooting twice, or more than twice. You are dealing 2 instances of damage on her first dupe when it comes to this skill specifically. This is why a lot of people are recommending going for her B1 for that extra instance of damage, which, by the way, if you crit on the first one, you're also increasing the crit rate and crit damage of the second shot, so both of them could be critting, which could lead into some crit fishing, which I personally don't like, but that's up to you if you want to be rewinding for 1 crit at the start of the battle or not. But this is the reason why people recommend going for a dupe on her for this skill specifically, nothing else. In fact, I would say that you can go no dupes and she works fantastically, but if you want to go for the extra copy, it will help you a lot. That's it about cold precision shot. We can talk about professional tactics. This is a skill that deals physical damage, gains skill points, confectants index. My god, bro, use standard terms. I don't know why games have to complicate terms so much. And you will gain a standard approach. So let's go into all of this. As you can see, you're going to be doing, once again, a really good range for snipers, 130% attack. And you're also going to be gaining the standard approach, which will be reducing incoming AoE damage by 25%. You can get up to 3 stacks of this buff, which is really good, and you will consume 1 stack every time you are attacked for an AoE attack. I think it's AoE If someone can confirm if this is AoE or just range damage incoming, that would be nice. That's it. It's a pretty good buff that she can get and an extra defensive layer that for snipers is always welcome, even though she should be on the back protected. But still, you will be using a lot of this skill, not only for the 25% buff against AoE damage, but also to consume the stacks from this skill, dealing 10% increased damage for each stack, which is pretty good. And then lastly, she has her ultimate, which will gain Frost Barrier and Alert. Now, Frost Barrier and Alert are kind of weird. Frost Barrier is a shield that when an enemy breaks it, it will be dealing thorns damage or ice damage and shield them for like 80% of the damage, I think it is, or something like that. So it's 80% or 90% attack that you're dealing back to the enemy when they break this shield. Now the problem is Alert. Alert will only work if you actually have the shield active. If the shield breaks, Alert doesn't work. Alert, for those of you who don't know, basically if in range an ally gets attacked, you will counter-attack that enemy as well. So Alert is pretty good, and that's why you want to always keep her on the back. Use your ultimate so you can gain your Alert, and use your cold shot for the double instance of damage if you have your B1. She's a really good DPS if you're murdering her and if you're keeping her healthy at all times. This is why it's kind of a downside to be using Makiatto. I'm gonna be calling her Dolla a lot. I'm used to that, okay? Even though it's a meme at this point. But that's like her only downside, that she needs to be 100% HP most of the time. Even if she goes below 80%, she's gonna be losing a lot with the keys that I will showcase in a second. And then lastly, you have her passive right here, okay? If we go to the passive, increase critical rate but reduces critical damage. At the start of the turn, if Makiatto's HP exceeds 80%, gains insight and steady progress. And also, when attacking a target with frozen or rigid, you ignore part of their shield, which is always welcome. Now, when it comes to insight and steady movement, okay, these two buffs that she's getting with her passive. This basically means that her ultimate has one more tile of range and she gets one more action point, which, by the way, this is important because for those of you who don't know, snipers in this game are by far action point wise. As you can see, Makiatto is the worst with the other snipers, mostly Nagan and Nemesis. They have 4 points when it comes to moving, so getting an extra one means you will be able to move a lot because it's really important to keep her actually out of the range of the enemies, healthy for your buffs so you don't break her shield, so she works as intended. So it is a pretty nice passive. Now let's talk a little bit about the keys and then we'll go about the weapons, okay? Starting with the keys, there is multiple keys that I would recommend. As you can see, you have the website, the guides if you prefer to, instead of watching this video, just check it in 5 seconds, okay? When it comes to the keys, the weapons and the sets. When it comes to the keys, the first 2 keys you unlock are actually best in a slot for her. The first one, as you can see, when the active skill Cold Precision Shots results in a kill, you're actually gaining an extra skill point, and the second key will give you 3 skill points at the start of the battle, which helps a lot to actually be proccing your ultimate, getting your shield, and getting the extra boosts. So the second key is almost mandatory to get, I will say personally. The first one is really good because you're going to be using Cold Precision Shot a lot, and then the last key that I would recommend personally going is going to be the last 2 keys right here. So this one right here at the bottom, and also her yellow key. We should not have this key yet. Not gonna talk about this because as far as I know, we're not getting this. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments and I will put the comment pin with what it does. But the last one that I would recommend is getting actually this because it increases attack by 10% at the start of the battle, and this effect will last until your HP drops below 100% for the first time. This key is the reason why she is still, one of those downside characters, because it's really hard to keep her at the 100% all the fight, right? Through the whole fight, even more so for bosses. In fact, for bosses, a lot of people usually do not pull this key and will switch to any of the other 3 available. And then lastly, you have her common key, which is actually pretty good. At the start of the action, if your own HP is greater than 80%, reduce stability damage taken from attacks by 2 points, making your shield last longer if needed, which on a lot of battles will help a lot, even more so for Dolla, considering her barrier will be lasting longer as well. So I will say it's worth going for this common key, but not mandatory because it's expensive. Cores are a really limited resource in this game. But I would go for the first 2 keys and then for the last one right here for the absolute concentration. If you're doing bosses, you could be switching. Now let's talk about weapons. And for weapons, we can switch into like the actual global account. There is multiple weapons that I do recommend, but basically you have her own weapon, which is going to be bittersweet caramel. This weapon not only ignores 10% defense, but if the enemy has any type of ice debuff, it will ignore another 10%, making it best in a slot for her, of course, since it's a nice character. But if you don't like pulling for weapons, like it's my case, for example, I would recommend getting the standard SSR sniper, Samosek. Samosek makes you ignore stability on the enemy 1 point, and if you have Insight, which Dolla should have always, depending how you play her, you will ignore an extra point of stability, making it a pretty good weapon for Makiatto. Now, when it comes to the last weapon that I want to recommend is, of course, Walter Wa 2000. This SR weapon will ignore 20% defense as long as you have, or the enemy has, an ice type debuff, making it also really, really good, and in some situations even better than Samosek. But SR weapons have really worse stats when it comes to, for example, the 43 weapon giving stats to Dolla or giving stats to Nemesis. As you can see, it's going to be a huge difference. Now, I will also recommend this weapon if you have her. This is what I will be using unless I decide to buy Samosek on the shop with my currency from pulling. This Nemesis weapon, which you might not be able to see because my face is on the middle, right there. If the target current HP percentage is above 70%, increase damage dealt to them by 12%. This is a great weapon to start the battle and to start encounters with specific enemies, or for that first shot if you're using cold shot as well, since it's going to be doing two instances of damage. So those are the 4 weapons that I would be recommending for Dolla, for Kafka, or for whatever you want to call her. I will never call her Makiatto or Wawa, because, by the way, people who call her Wawa for me on my island with my flag back there, this is a Wawa for me, okay? This is this is what we call Wawas, which sounds like Makiatto, and is tilting me every time someone calls her that, because I just think of a bush. It sounds weird for me. I prefer to call her Makiatto or Dolla for the memes to make people mad. And then the last thing that we need to talk about is the set, and what set I would personally recommend for her. Now, I am a firm believer of Phase Strike for every single character. DPS, Phase Strike. Even for supports, Phase Strike is always the answer to your problems, okay? Now, Phase Strike is a general set you can use, but of course you will benefit more from the ice set. Now, a 5% benefit or a 5% difference for me is not enough. That's why I farm Phase Strike, because I can use it for everyone rather than farming every single element, which is gonna take a long ass time. If a new character comes out tomorrow and we're getting another sniper, I can just put this Phase Strike set. If we're getting another assault rifle, there is a lot of assault rifle characters coming out, I can just give them any of my weapons already built and prepared for them, right? So for me, I prefer Phase Strike, but the ice set is going to be better. When it comes to stats on the characters, I've talked about this a little bit, okay? And a lot of people don't like it, but it's the truth. This game is pretty simple to build characters. DPSs just need crit and crit damage. Your supports can go HP, even though your supports can also go crit and crit damage. The main stats you want are attack, both flat and percentage. That's how you build every character in this game. Some people will be like, no, you can't min-max with this. You will go with attack, both flat and percentage. You will go with crit and crit damage. It's a simplified way of how to min-max your units, but it does work. The game is not complicated. The game doesn't have anything that will require you to absolutely min-max everything to perfection, but that's how I would recommend building Makiatto. Now, we're gonna be doing viewer pools tomorrow and giving away some skins for both Dolla and Dolla, so if you wanna hang out on a stream, feel free to come by and say hello. That's gonna be it for this video. As usual, bosses, have a great day. Love you all. Good luck with your pool generates. I'll see you in the next one.
役立たずは楽園から追放するのみ。ブランとノワールのショータイムです。天地万物を切るとはこういうことだ。